The UK's approach with regard to aid policy is something that is in the process of change. The ground is moving under the United Kingdom's feet, in part because of the rise of the rest. Those countries, whether it's Turkey, China, India, etc., are now some of the major trade and development and aid interlocutors with Africa. Therefore, what development means is changing, and what aid means is changing. I know that that's a long answer, but what it means is that for the United Kingdom, it's requiring a complete sort of paradigm shift in the way the UK engages in aid, because you have these new players, and when you talk about I'm talking about the national players, bilaterals, the Chinas and the Brazils. We forget Bill Gates and all the other major private sector philanthropists who have entered the aid field with huge resources, highly focused on particular areas that have really changed the ground under the UK. So is the UK's engagement with regard to aid flawed? No, but it requires change. Why? Because the world has changed dramatically.
I increasingly wonder whether development is a useful word to use to express the different things that we're trying to talk about here. I think development is something that only makes sense if you think that it's something that kind of happens to countries as a whole. But of course that's not how governments see it. What governments are trying to do is improve their health service, or make sure that children are learning something in school, or develop the kind of financial regulation that will encourage investors to come and create jobs. And those are challenges which are faced by governments the world over. They're not specific to a small group of countries who we might think of as developing countries. I think possibly the only place where development as an idea really makes sense is in the development ministries of donor countries.
I think our approach to development is constantly changing. I think this is a key moment for development because a new development framework is being negotiated at the moment. I think it's really critical for people to continue to engage so that some of the issues that came through today, particularly if I were to pick a few, financial flows, trade, taxation, devolving greater responsibility to so-called developing countries and so on, are reflected in the new framework.
I think the UK's shown under successive governments very strong support for international development, and this year for the first time the UK has met the international target of spending 0.7% of its GDP on international development, and that is extremely welcome. So I think the UK is seen in the UN system and in the World Bank and elsewhere and among developing countries as an extremely strong and effective support of international development. But I think the UK, like every actor, every government, every international aid agency, is always looking for ways to become more effective and improve what it does.
Development and aid are not at all the same thing, and in fact are really very, very different to each other. Aid, overseas aid that's provided by governments, is a tiny drop in the ocean of what governments do to improve the lives of their people. And the most important part of that is always going to be what governments in individual countries do to run health services, to run education services, and crucially to make themselves answerable to the people in whose names they're doing all of that. It's really nothing to do with aid at all.
I think we need to think harder about how do we communicate to people who aren't experts, who aren't working in the UN, aren't working in international development, so we can capture their interest. And some of that is about simply speaking in clearer language, avoiding jargon. I think a big part of it is about being able to tell stories which demonstrate real results of what we're doing.
The UN, the United Nations, is owned by the global community, by the world, and is still relevant to development and to the idea that we share a common humanity and a common series of values which all human beings, regardless of where they hail from, which country, which part of the world, which religion, people want to be free, people want to be able to speak freely, people want to live in peace. I know it's a very big picture, but I think that partly what we're doing here is looking at one aspect of what one does to help bring that kind of condition about.